We are very pleased to have with us today Todd Bensman. Many of you are familiar with him and his incredible work. He has had quite the career. He's been a journalist, a counterterrorism intelligence expert, now back to journalism. He was a two-time National Press Club Award winner. He currently serves as the Texas-based Senior National Security Fellow for the Center for Immigration Services. He does a variety of public speaking events, as well as appearing before Congress as an expert witness, and of course, many, many podcasts and other interview opportunities. Todd, I haven't really done justice to your background, so if you'd like to embellish on that a little bit, go for it.
Oh, thank you. That pretty much covers it. I had a full first career as a reporter, mostly a newspaper guy. 10 years at the Dallas Morning News, another 3 or 4 years at Hearst Newspapers down in San Antonio. That's where I got my first taste of border coverage. Did a lot of reporting down there on the Mexican border and in Mexico back in 2006, 7, 8, and 9. Transitioned after 23 years to the Intelligence Counterterrorism Division of the Texas Department of Public Safety. So I ended up here in Austin, still here in Austin. Was there for almost 10 years, and then took a position with the Center for Immigration Studies, which essentially brought me full circle to, writing and publishing and reporting again on the border. So that's the short.
That's a very illustrious career. So congratulations on that and your awards. You've also written a couple of books. Would you like to talk about those a little bit first?
Yeah, sure. Once I once I left public service, I worked for a think tank, and that's what think tank people do, is they write books. So I wrote my first book, America's Covert Border War, which is all about the threat of jihadist infiltration over the southern border and what the United States does in terms of counterterrorism programs. That's what I did. I worked on a lot over at Texas DPS. And then in 2023, I published my second book, which is called Overrun: How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. The title's pretty self-explanatory. It's about this historic sustained mass migration crisis, how it started, what it looked like, who did it, when, why, how, and how to get out of it. And that book is still, it's a year and a half now since it came out, but it is really just as relevant today as when it came out, because we're still in this thing.
The issues have not gone away. They've just gotten more intense.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yep. I would like to spend our time today focusing on what all you saw. I followed you with all of the reporting you did from deep South Mexico. And then last week you appeared on Hannity. It was a very brief interview. I would like you to pick up with where you left off, because clearly there was unfinished business in that recording.
Yes, there was. He didn't cut me off out of meanness. There was a guest earlier who got in a big argument with him that he couldn't get out of until he won or something, until he had the last word. And so it just went on, and it cut into the time of the rest of the show. So
we won't have that problem today.
Well, the first thing is that the Mexican government cut a deal with the Biden administration almost a year ago to scoop up thousands of immigrants from our border and internally deport them all the way to their southern border with Guatemala, and then trap them there behind a military blockade, all the roadblocks. So the buildup down there is unbelievable. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that are just trapped down there in Tapachula and other cities along that border for the election optics of the Harris campaign. At first, it was the Biden campaign. It looked terrible to have all those people, mass numbers crossing our borders, driving the polls down, so they cut this deal. Now, getting so close to the election, the immigrants that I talked to, dozens and dozens of them, are saying a couple things. One is they fear that Donald Trump is going to get elected. They call him El Diablo, and that if he does, he's going to close the border, which in fact he will. And there is this panicky urgency for them to rush through that roadblock to somehow get through the Mexican barricade past the military into our border. And they'll have about 10 weeks.
So why don't you pick up where you left off from that interview?
Right. So the reason I went to southern Mexico, which is to say that I went to the city of Tapachula, which is the furthermost southern city in Mexico, right on the Guatemala border. That's the bottleneck spot where millions of immigrants who reached our border first crossed into Mexico. So you go to Tapachula, you can really see what's about to hit us a couple weeks before it hits us. So I've been there 5 or 6 times. It's a great place to get a good gander on what's happening. The reason I went there this time, though, is because about Christmas time, 2023, the Biden-Harris administration was having a really bad problem with thousands and thousands of border crossers just pouring in, especially at Eagle Pass, but also in California and Arizona, to the tune of 12,000, 14,000 every single day. Big world record. I don't think anybody's ever broken that record or had that record. It was a political spectacle if you were planning to run a campaign. Biden was planning to run this campaign, and you can't run for a whole year with that kind of thing happening. You just can't. You're going to lose for sure with that level of immigration coming through. So he went to Mexico and cut a deal with the Mexican president to fix it for him just for the length of the campaign. So what did that look like? Well, what the Mexicans did is they put 35,000 troops out and rounded up all the immigrants they could lay hands on from Tijuana down to Matamoros and forced them onto planes and buses. And I mean tens of thousands. They did this for months until pretty much everybody was either gone or running or hiding or whatever. And they shipped them down to Tapachula, the city that I was just telling you about, and another one called Villahermosa in Tabasco State next door. So between these two states down there, they started just shipping tens of thousands, and then they put a military blockade around that whole region so that nobody could get through in the normal way on buses and, smuggling and whatever. So they were blocking them down there, and within a month, the numbers at our border had plummeted to whatever, from 12,000, 13,000 a day to 3,000 and 4,000 a day. Like that. It happened. So when they talk about, we need this big piece of legislation and everything, no, they didn't. All they had to do is just call Mexico and cut whatever deal they cut. The point is that for 10 months of the campaign, since December to now, the Mexicans have been holding the line down. And there's this kind of like a Gaza Strip that's developed where just hundreds of thousands of them are packed in. Now, you probably don't know anything about this. Most Americans know nothing about that any of this was happening because the media in the United States chose not to cover it at all. That goes for the conservative media. No media, liberal or conservative, covered this. You could read a little bit about it by me because I was going down there and covering it because it's just about the biggest story on the border. That what was happening, what the Mexicans were doing down there was huge. Big diplomatic story, political story, campaign story, border security story, human interest story, the immigrants getting caught up in this thing, more pouring in all the time and a lot of drama. So I just wanted to go down there and see what it was like in the enclave that they had built. And that's what I did. I spent about a week down there. And what I found was that there are hundreds of thousands of immigrants just piled up down there, stacked to the rafters, all over Chiapas State. They've got them hemmed in all over Tabasco State. Nobody knows really how many. One publisher of the newspaper down there told me that there were 150,000 alone just in Tapachula, but they're doing population transfers out of Tapachula to other towns and cities to spread them out, because about 7,000 a day are still coming in.
Wow.
It's just simply untenable. The Mexicans are bursting at the seams down there. It's a major headache for the Mexicans. It's like, how much longer can they hold their breath underwater? Can they get that 10 seconds in, before the election? They're trying to get Harris elected, obviously. And they cannot let these people through. And so what I found is that those immigrants down there believe that Donald Trump is going to win, and that if he wins, he'll block up the border when he gets into office. So their window for entering under the lenient policies of the Harris administration is rapidly closing. So they're getting panicked. More and more are pouring in. The ones that are there are pushing against the Mexicans, testing, probing, really, trying to get through. The Mexicans are, by my best guesstimation, are probably going to finally let them go free right around November 5, November 6, because
of course they will.
It's really untenable down there. And so what I'm kind of prognosticating here, and what I would have said on Hannity, is that there's a really good chance that after November 5, sometime, that we will have this wall of humanity smash into our border, especially if it's Donald Trump, because there's going to be a 10-week period between election and inauguration that it's still Harris and Biden running things at the border. And I think the Mexicans are going to be really happy to just flush the lines out, let everybody go through, dismantle the roadblocks temporarily. If it's Harris, maybe they might hold the line for a little longer. I don't know. But my guess there is also that they'll figure, well, we met our obligation. We did our job. We got you elected by holding these people back. So you got to do us a solid and let them in, because they're killing us down here. So I think either way, there's very likely going to be a mad rush on the U.S. border after the election. And I will be very, very happy to tell you that I was wrong if I am.
So this is one of those times that if you were wrong, you would not be upset about it.
Happy to be wrong.
Yep.
I'm wrong.
So let me guess that the Mexican government thought this was a grand plan, but the actual residents probably don't feel that way. Is that accurate?
It is. I'll be honest, I spent most of my time with the immigrants, not with the residents, but right. I did interview I did interview a few. And I interviewed the publisher of the Tapachula. They call it Noticia de Tapachula, which is the local newspaper. And I asked him that question, what do people think around here? And he says, well, the majority of the people of Tapachula and Chiapas absolutely hate this. They're very negative on it. It's a big problem. It's a headache. All these thousands of people, they're sleeping in the streets. They're begging. They're hustling. They're stealing. They're causing trouble. They're everywhere. But the business community loves it because we're all making money. So it's kind of like that is how it was described to me. But the Mexican government can't possibly be down with this because they are having to manage the people. It's got to be expensive. They're moving people by bus. They're having to make accommodations in public parks, and they don't have space to put people. The shelters are all full. There's going to be a humanitarian catastrophe if they don't get people fed, sheltered, and that sort of thing. And it's expensive. All of that stuff is expensive. And again, the foreign minister of Mexico just came out recently and said 7,000 a day were crossing in from Guatemala right now. That's a huge, huge number. My guess is that those people are trying to get in before a possible Trump win. That's what's happening.
Right. Do you feel that it's likely that some of our taxpayer dollars are going to Mexico to help offset that expense for their government?
Well, that's a big state secret. What did we get? What did we have to pay the Mexicans for this? Or what did we threaten them? Remember, this Mexico operation is not a new thing. It's something from Donald Trump's playbook from the first term. He did this. He told Mexico, but it wasn't, we didn't give them anything. We said, if you don't do it, there's going to be 28% trade tariffs that will absolutely wipe out your entire economy overnight. And they did exactly what they were told. They shut it down at the Guatemala border, just like this, roadblocks, blockade, the whole thing. The only difference is that was for 4 years, at least 2 years. And maybe if he would have won another 4 years, if he would have taken office for a second term, it was long term. This thing looks like it's just a short term, 1 year deal to get the Democrats elected and Trump defeated by holding back that terrible look. We don't know what Biden paid or threatened. They never told us. We can't find out. They're shut. They've zipped their lips. They won't even talk about it. Harris never talks about this. When Biden was running, he never talked about this. They're embarrassed about it. Or they just don't want to have to answer this question that you're asking, what they get. Well, we have a hint, though. 60 Minutes, about 4 months after this thing started down there in Mexico, did a piece about it. They went down and they interviewed Lopez Obrador. They got him on film. You can go find it here and pause this and put it in, what I'm about to tell you. But the interviewer asked him, well, what do you want in exchange for this? And he says, I want $20 billion. And she said, well, what if you don't get it? He says, well, then let the immigration flow. She said, but that sounds like blackmail. She said it just like that. That sounds like blackmail. And he said, I say what I think.
Right.
So we don't know if he got the 20 billion or maybe some down payment increments. Who knows? One of these days, we will find out what the cost of it was.
That will be interesting because there was a payment of some sort. This was not a free agreement. We paid something in some form or fashion. It's just a matter of how much and what type of compensation. There's no free lunch. I don't care where you are.
I mean, I will say that, the Mexicans definitely want Harris to win. They definitely wanted Biden to win because when those guys are in office, there's free flow. They don't have to hold them back. They get to move them right through. So it's to their benefit to have a Harris kind of presidency. But I think that the American president wanted it way more than the Mexican president. So there was already an imbalance there, and he had him over a barrel. He had Biden over a barrel, man. He was Lopez Obrador for the last year. He just left office now, and there's Claudia Sheinbaum is in there. Had Biden Harris over a barrel big time for the last year. So they could demand whatever they wanted, and they were going to get it.
Well, that makes perfect sense, and you can see why they were motivated to cut the deal they did.
Yeah, because so you think, remember what was happening in December when they cut this deal. I mean, it was just the worst chaos, the worst numbers, the highest volumes ever in the history of the world coming over that border every single day. And it attracted international media attention finally. The numbers were so vast that even like CNN went down. I'm not kidding. I saw a CNN reporter down for real. A real CNN reporter finally went to the border I mean, you couldn't turn away from what was happening down there. And then in turn, the polls that were being taken all during that period were showing this like plummeting, dive bombing popularity over that issue. They had to do so.
I have to believe that the busloads and plane loads of immigrants that arrived in some maybe uncomfortable neighborhoods in the Northeast, perhaps that had something to do with the national recognition that finally came forth. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. Because, for the first 2 years of this thing, the pipeline was still kind of filling up and people didn't really, especially in those other cities, didn't really kind of know. The president was saying there's nothing wrong down there. Pay no attention at all to the man behind the curtain. There is no curtain. There's no man. There's no curtain. Nothing is happening at all. And everybody kind of went with that. There were a lot of people like me who were down there going, oh my God, it's like thousands and thousands a day are just pouring in like all day long, every day for months and years. But eventually the pipeline filled all the way up and then burst. And I mean, sprayed everybody. Unpleasant spray. The New York, Chicago, Denver, Boston, DC, every town, Springfield's all over the place. There's no city or town in America that didn't get sprayed when the pipeline burst about a year and a half ago. And they started screaming, come fix this, or give us money, or, the population of America then couldn't not notice what had happened. And people got very upset. That's why the polls were being driven down like that, because the regular rank and file are like, wait, you said there wasn't anything happening down there, and now there's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. The bank is broke. The city's going bankrupt. They're taking all our shelters. Our homeless people are being kicked out. Our veterans are being booted. All the money is gone. The schools, who are all these kids in our schools? All of a sudden, they don't speak English. You couldn't look away. The hospitals are all overcrowded, and So yes, you are quite correct. The American public knows exactly what happened because it's in their backyard.
Right. I spoke at an event out of state just about this time last year, and I spoke mostly about border and border issues. And one of the things that I stated that seemed shocking to them is Americans need to wake up and realize that the border problem is not just a Texas or Arizona problem. It's a United States of America problem. People are not coming through that border and staying on those border states. They are passing right on through, and they are coming to cities all across America. Truth be known, there are probably some right here in your town, right now, in your backyard, and you don't even know it. And they were quite shocked at that. But I'm like, this is truth and reality, folks. This is a real picture of what is going on.
It's very true.
And I showed them some of the pictures of, some of Jason Jones' footage from the border, what that looked like. I showed them pictures of what Santa Muerte looks like, and they were absolutely appalled. And I'm like, this is coming to a city near you if it's not already there. And I will just say that there were a lot of shocked faces in that room and very quiet.
It is in their communities now. You can't look away. I mean, little towns, Springfield, Missouri. I mean, there are hundreds of Springfields out there. They just picked this one town, but whatever. It's the campaign. Go to any town, and all you have to really do is drive around your town a little bit. Go to the Home Depot. If you don't have kids in school, if you have kids in school, you know exactly what's going on in your school district. But if you don't, Google the name of your school district and bond election and see what comes up. I promise you're having a bond election that is going to spike your taxes to pay for all these new kids that don't speak English and have an education that is probably not commensurate with where they're going to find themselves, where your kids are in the same grade and age.
Right.
And you're going to be paying for that. And that's happening all over, because this is a very child-centric mass migration crisis. If you had kids, they were letting you in automatically. It was your free ticket right in. They were letting everybody in automatically anyway, but sometimes when COVID was still happening, they could get pushed back for a while, and then they could try again. But if you had kids, you were in like Flynn, man. And also unaccompanied minors, they told the whole world, if you're an unaccompanied minor and you show up at our border, we're taking you in. Don't you worry none. We're taking you in. So we have hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors that went straight to the schools, the ones that weren't lying about their age.
Right. One of the things that has just really riled me up in the last few months, the number of missing children is somewhere around 325,000 children. And yet you do not see that mentioned in media coverage. So I did a little investigation the other day. I thought, I wonder what cities in America have a population of approximately 325,000 people. Well, Orlando, Florida did. So I posted this on one of my social media accounts. I said, think about it this way. If Orlando, Florida suddenly vanished, do you think there would be some media coverage? Do you think people would be asking what happened, why, and where did they go? And do you think there would be some law enforcement investigation along those lines? Of course there would. Why aren't they doing the same for the missing children?
Well, I think you and your audience probably know the answer to that. It's political, it's partisan. I mean, I'll confirm that for you. I believe, remember how greatly concerned the Democrats were a few years ago when there was kids were being separated from their criminally charged parents.
Right.
Like, oh my God, the children, that sort of thing, the families. But here you have hundreds, nobody cares. You have hundreds of thousands. And actually, I think the number I read that report. It's I believe a DHS OIG report, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it said 425,000 kids had gotten, somehow they lost track of. But
it's amazing.
Where are the kids? It's partisan. If you're in the middle of a hotly contested presidential race, that is not playing well for the Democrats. That is a terrible story for the Democrats. And so the media certainly does not want to do anything to help the Nazi guy who's running. So, that's what that's about. I believe that. I was a journalist for 23 years, regular mainstream guy, newspaper guy. I'm telling you, that's what's going on. I know my industry.
I had Victor Avila on not long ago, and he said something that, and Derek Moss has said this too. He said, this is not a red or a blue issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue because it affects every American. And how they can make it a partisan issue is beyond my comprehension. It's not partisan.
Right. You're right. It's nonpartisan, but by the same token, what they did, if Trump wins, it'll be primarily because of what they did. It literally, the balance of power hangs on this issue. And they know it. Everybody knows it. And so when there's that much at stake, power-wise, it's going to become partisan. And it did. Any terrible, shocking kind of news, and there's so much of it down there, that happens is not going to get covered by the other side. It'll never get covered. Not honestly. Only a fact check to debunk it, or that's not really quite true, or there's some part of it that somebody said something that wasn't true, and so therefore the whole thing is not true. Casting shadows on a lot of that's what I see a lot of that going on right now. The media, my old industry, is not what it was.
Right. You mentioned earlier on in the interview about you had what you thought was a solution to all of these issues. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it depends on I mean, they all have different issues. The main solution is remain in Mexico pushbacks. That was a Trump era policy
Right.
that cut out the heart of the incentive for coming here in the first place, which was to claim asylum and get released into the interior of the U.S. to disappear. Remain in Mexico forced people to, yeah, you can apply for asylum till the cows come home, but you're not getting released into the U.S. You're going to wait out the whole 4 years, 5 years of adjudication in Mexico, which we deem perfectly safe. When you cut the heart out of the incentive like that, people just stay home.
Right.
And then the other thing is something called, you can Google this, it's in the Immigration and Nationality Act, called 212F, Section 212F, which allows the president to also just push back anybody they want without giving them even that chance to claim asylum. You just don't get to claim asylum at all. You're just out. You're back in Mexico. And then for all the rest that somehow get in, they have to be detained. The law says that you must be detained. So they need to just restore the detention facilities that were there before and fill them up and slowly deport people that warrant deportation under the law. So between those 2 or 3 things, it would take probably about an hour or two and people would stop coming. That's what I ran into in Tapachula. You know, those people down there are not stupid. Immigrants are smart people, especially the ones that have packed up and come here in the first place. And they understand that if Trump gets into office, they will not be able to get in. They won't get in. And that even if they do get in, there's a pretty good chance they get deported under this mass deportation program. So I believe that within an hour or two of inauguration, if it's Donald Trump, that most immigrants will stay home. They'll cancel their plans and stay home for the next 4 years or shelter in place wherever they are, like they did in 2018, 19, and 20. They stayed home. The numbers were the lowest that they were in, 30, 40 years.
Well, it's going to be a huge problem for us Americans, regardless of who wins the election. It just
because
is.
It's too late. 10 million people got in at least.
Right.
And, they're going to be a burden on communities, and there's going to be a lot of change just from the 10 million that got in. And then remember, the Harris-Biden administration is trying to regularize as many of them as possible. In other words, get them some sort of status, as many of them as possible, so that Trump can't deport them. They're doing a lot of things right now to build a kind of a Teflon shield around the 10 million. And they've got, a few months to do it. Though it's going to be difficult to do a lot of the deportations under that scenario.
Well, it's going to be a mess no matter how you look at it. And we will be grappling with this, as you said, for years into the future. So
yeah,
America needs to think long and hard about all of this when they vote. And hopefully there will be more people aware of it by the day. You did a great job reporting while you were in Mexico. That was great reporting. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you can find, I'm collecting all of the reporting in one place on my website, toddbensman.com. If you go there, you'll see it front and center, big Chiapas, Tapachula. But if you scroll down a little bit, you'll also see the reporting I did from my recent trip to Colombia and Panama, much further south, which is the Darien Gap territory. I spent a week on both sides of the gap, a week on the Colombia side and a week on the Panama side. And the reason I went there is because, you talk about this is in the U.S. national interest, border security is, because we've had a lot of people on the terrorism watch list come in, 400 at least, that we caught. And lots of people from, vicious gangs, MS-13 and TDA and, God knows what else, coming from all over the world. Well, that's where they're crossing through, the Darien Gap. It's a bottleneck of an area that is very easily choked off with the willpower to do it. And for years and years, nobody would ever even try to do it. And the Panamanians elected a brand new president, Raul Jose Mulino, who ran on a campaign, I'm going to close the Darien Gap. That was like unbelievable. In both of my books, I recommend air repatriation flights, U.S.-funded air repatriation flights in large number from the Darien Gap countries. And this guy said, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. All I need is the U.S. money, and we're going to do it. He gets into office on July 1st. The American government said, we'll help you do that. They signed an agreement. Everything looked like it was just great. So I went down to see how it was going. And guess what? The Americans welched on the deal. No money, no diplomacy, no help, just token stuff. And so all those people are pouring through. And remember, I told you about the 7,000 a day coming into Mexico. All of them are going to end up over here. That's why there's 7,000 a day coming in, because we wouldn't help the Panamanians shut down the gap. So all of that reporting is also on my site and in video and print reports too.
Your website is an incredible resource. It's like an encyclopedia of all things border related. I've spent some time there. It is very good information.
Thank you.
Well, we covered a lot today, but is there something else that you would like to add as we come to the end of our time?
Not really. I think a lot depends on this issue, my issue. It's either we're at the fork in the road. Everybody knows this. We're going either this way or we're going that way. Or no, actually, we're either going this way or we're just continuing straight.
True. Well said.
I mean, it's that stark. We all know what Trump's going to do right away. And I think we all know pretty well what Harris is going to do, despite what she says. I've studied her background. I've written about her prior positions. She's saying we're going to do tough border security, but I don't believe her, because it was just a few years ago that she ran for president herself on the most radical, extreme immigration positions out there. I mean, she's out there with the far fringe loony left on all of this stuff, wants to, end deportation, wants to provide free medical health care to all illegals, wants to abolish ICE. All of that stuff was just a few years ago. And that's where she stands, no matter what she says now.
That's right. There's an old saying about actions speak louder than words. You look at her history, just like you said, and you see what you get. She was on a show last week. It was a bit humorous because she said something about, they had reached a temporary border agreement. They were wanting a more long-term agreement. And the interviewer said, why don't you do both? She was completely dumbfounded, flustered, and did not have an answer. Apparently, that question was not anticipated. She was not prepared.
Yeah. Well, it's in black and white. She's on video. They've got her on tape for a long time. Her votes are on the record about immigration, about illegal immigration and border security. This is not a big mystery about her. We're going to stay right where we are. Look for another 10 million people in the country if she gets reelected, and probably a wall of humanity whoever gets elected after November 5. Look for that too.
Well, I think it would be appropriate for us to think about having another interview maybe after November, and we see what has happened and see what it looks like moving forward. I don't think it's going to be a pretty picture either way, but I would like to entertain that if you would be open to it.
Sure. Well, let me know. And, in the meantime, you can follow me on all my social media. I'm on, it's Bensman at Bensman Todd on X. And I've also got an account at Getter and Truth Social. My website, toddbensman.com. Center for Immigration Studies is my employer, CIS.org. You can follow me. I'll probably go back down there once I start to see that. If I start seeing the dam break down there, I'll probably head down there and check it out.
That could be some pretty good information to put in a third book. Have you thought about that?
Man, writing that second book just about killed me. So I'm I'm thinking hard. I'm gonna think 3 times before I write another one, but maybe so.
That's very understandable. Todd, you've been awesome today. Thank you very much for your time and especially for your information. You have been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me finish my thought that I started on with Hannity the other night.